let's go over the attachment styles, which I probably should have done at the top of the show. I know, and then we'll be able to break each one down and define each and dive deeper into their drawbacks and their superpowers. Because even the ones that sound kind of bad, like you just sort of hinted at, there's got to be a reason that it was beneficial at some point. Otherwise,
Hands
people wouldn't have
down.
evolved it, right?
Definitely, hands down.
Cool.
So even before we go over that, I think it's very important to say you're spot on. These are not pathologies. And I've seen on TikTok and on social media, it's like people refer to avoidance or to anxious as like something unhealthy. There's nothing on. It's not about health or disease. The whole attachment field, which is one of the reasons why I like it so much, it actually comes from developmental neuroscience, developmental psychology, and social psychology. So it didn't rise from the science, sort of the medical model. It rose from more of a research from a research background. So it doesn't really occupy itself with is it healthy or unhealthy, which I really like. It really asks more: is it working for you or is it not working for you? Is it effective or is it ineffective? And I find that it's a much more useful way to look at things in relationships rather than healthy or disease. And the truth of the matter is that these attachment styles are very prevalent in the population. So there's the anxious, avoidant, and secure. And we're not exactly sure about the rate in the population, but the original study found that there's about 54% secure, 25% avoidant, and about 20 something percent, 20% anxious, and a very, very small fragment are anxious and avoidant. But these are all like no one's saying that 20% or 25% of the population are like have an illness.
Right.
So
Okay.
so and you're right also that there's a certain advantage, and I'm gonna get to that. But first I'll explain what is these what but first I'll explain what these different attachment styles are.
Great. Yeah. Please do.
So so basically, we already started to talk about it. It really is measured along two domains: how comfortable we feel with intimacy and closeness, and then at the same time also how sensitive we are to potential danger in the relationship. And danger, as I said before, it's about how available is this other person to me. And so if we love closeness, but also we don't have a very sensitive radar, things just go, a lot of potential danger goes over our head and we won't even notice it, then we're secure. We have a secure attachment. We get along very easily with people. Things don't bother us that much, but we also love to be close. As much closeness as you want, you'll get, basically. So that's secure. And then anxious, they also love closeness. They love, love, love to be close, but they have a very sensitive radar. And if they feel that even as like a slight, or the person all of a sudden doesn't come home, or they come home and they like make a little bit of a face because they had a hard day, then it's like, what's wrong, what's wrong? They see things, and it's hard for them not to see things. And the research shows that they actually have a sixth sense for identifying danger. So maybe with someone secure, you could have an affair and they'll never notice it. That will never fly with someone anxious. They'll notice it right away. So there's advantages and disadvantages, and sometimes they overshoot, or they
Yeah.
sort of see, right. They
That's what I was
do.
going to say. It's like the anxious person is like, aha, I was right about the affair. Yeah, but you were wrong the other 40 times you thought I was having an affair, and I wasn't. I was just like, really, I was working late. And it seems like, and I'm sure we'll get to this, it seems like there's a point at which somebody who is anxious and constantly like, you're doing something wrong, also kind of creates a self-fulfilling prophecy because they're driving someone away by constantly doing things like that. But that I'm getting cart before the horse here, I think.
No, no, you're not. I'm glad. I like, because it's just like it becks. I'm glad you brought it up, because this is exactly why I love attachment and I love this field so much, because there are things that you can do to really pacify that neurocircuitry, and it's much easier than people think. Oftentimes, people do get it like, "Why are you constantly asking me? Why are you doing this? And why are you doing that? You're driving me away." And it's really, and the anxious person feels really bad for doing it, and they think, well, maybe I'm too dependent, I'm too needy, and too sensitive. All the while they have this neurocircuitry that's very sensitive, and all the while there are actually simple things that people can do to make it to pacify that biology. And if you just have to, you're just gonna like to understand the logic of attachment. It's slightly different. It's not it's not an analytical logic. It's a much more fundamental survival logic. So if you understand it, then you know how to pacify it. So for example, if you're late all the time from work, you don't just ignore your partner when they're like asking you what's happening, but you find ways to reassure them preemptively. That's why I think I used to say you find ways to turn out small fires before small flames before they become forest fires. That's kind of the way to do it. Now, researching more how secure people do it, they don't even let a small flame come into place. They will they will FaceTime them. Hey, I'm at work. What's happening? I miss you. They will give a lot of reassurance. You don't even need a lot of reassurance. It's the same thing. It's attachment is so much easier to see in kids, but it's the same system. You don't wait until your child is super tired before you put them to sleep because it's not gonna be easy when you wait until then. But you don't
Yeah.
wait until they're super hungry before you feed them because you're going to pay for that if you're going to
Yeah.
do that. It's the same thing with adults. It's the exact same thing.
I mean, you definitely shouldn't wait till I'm super hungry before you feed me either. I get it. I understand that.
Exactly.
um, the anxious thing is interesting because I feel like everybody has had an anxious partner at some point in their life, depending on how much dating they did before they got married. And maybe you're married to the anxious person, or maybe it was just like a girl or a guy you dated in high school. Because as I know, actually, that's a really good question here, in my humble opinion. Do kids are kids usually anxious? Because I feel like your first relationship, you don't know what's going on, and I feel like all my friends and all my girlfriends and myself were all sort of anxious attachment style in like ninth grade. You know, you like want to know what your girlfriend's doing. And if she's not hanging out with you, who is she with? And what do they do? You know, and then I grew out of that crap because I didn't, it stopped bugging me. But man, ninth, 10th grade, it was like my life revolved around making sure that I wasn't left out of things.
Right. So I do think that people do shift. Like it sounded like you shifted your attachment
Yeah.
style, right?
Yeah,
You definitely sounded like you became more secure. It's like, no,
for
you know what?
sure.
It's not worth it. So that's a good example of how, but you have to understand that also the research shows that sometimes people actually become more anxious. And I think it also depends on your life experiences. Uh, because if you think about it, we are extremely, extremely social human beings are like these uber social species. We're not very strong in terms of like our bodies are not like particularly strong compared to other animals. We're not like or we're not exactly agile. But what we lack for in those departments, we actually make up for in our collaboration abilities, and that's why we're so successful as species because we can collaborate. We have this intelligence and we can speak to each other and collaborate in ways that other animals can. So it actually makes sense that we wouldn't be stuck in just one particular behavioral mode without checking out what's happening in our environment and seeing, oh, actually, and that's also a way to think about attachment style. It's also called a working model. It's a set of beliefs and ideas about the world, but they're subject to change. If the world changes, and if your environment changes, and you say, actually, things are not so dangerous. And actually, people like me and I do belong, and people are not leaving me out so much. And I don't have to, I can let my guard down. I don't have to worry about this so much. You change your attachment style, which is what you just described.